Putin's army has eliminated the Ukrainian enclave southwest of Toretsk after a 4-month offensive. The enemy's main goal in this section of the front is to reach Konstantinovka. Geolocated footage from May the 25th showed the advance of the Russian armed forces in central Zarya and northern Romanovka. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War have voiced the situation on the battlefield in this section of the front. The source writes that Putin's army may have occupied Staraya Nikolaevka and Gnatovka and also captured fields south of Romanovka. The press service of the Russian Defense Ministry has already reported on the occupation of Romanovka. Russian war correspondents write that the battles on this section of the front are being conducted by units of the 68th Tank Regiment of the Russian Federation. One of the Z publics wrote that the Ukrainian Armed Forces tried to counterattack in the Romanovka area. Analysts estimate that Putin's army captured 65 kilometers squared of territory during the battles for Romanovka and Zarya. The Russian armed forces stepped up attacks in the area in early February 2025 and began a concerted effort to eliminate Ukrainian positions in the enclave south of Romanovka in late April 2025. To accomplish this task, the Kremlin had to redeploy 2 divisions of the 8th Combined Arms Army from the Kurakhovsky direction. However, Russian troops are having difficulty advancing in this area despite the fact that they are apparently prioritizing this sector of the front line and reinforcing it in early 2025. Let us recall that Z-War correspondents are calling on Putin to stop the war since the situation on the battlefield has reached a dead end. Russian Z blogger Maxim Kalashnikov, having returned from a business trip to the border with the Sumy region of Ukraine, published a revealing confession. Soldiers fighting on the front lines do not see the point in the ongoing war. He wrote about this in his Telegram channel, publishing an emotional message that has already gone viral. War fatigue is extreme. Even battle heroes believe that strategically nothing will change in principle and it is time to end the mass slaughter of people on both sides, Kalashnikov wrote.
Another soldier of the invading Russian army has surrendered to Ukrainian soldiers. The Russian soldier, who was targeted by a drone, indicated his willingness to surrender. The soldier took off his clothes to show that he had no weapons or explosives on him, and crawled towards the trench where the Ukrainian soldiers were. Upon reaching the trench, the Russian soldier was met by Ukrainian fighters. When Russian soldiers, helpless in the face of Ukrainian drones, see no other way out, they indicate that they want to surrender to the drones and in this way surrender by walking towards the Ukrainian fighters' position.
Ukraine still makes full use of Soviet aircraft, but at the same time integrates them into modern warfare. Aviation expert Anatoly Krapchinsky told Obozrevetel about the difficulties they face in this regard. We still fight on Su-24, Su-27, MiG-29. This is aviation from the Cold War. But thanks to the engineering school, which did not disappear, but transformed into war, these veterans became platforms for modern weapons, he noted. So Ukrainian Su-24s, Su-27s, MiG-29s crush Russian positions along the front line, and Russians see this. The expert explained that the Su-24, for example, was adapted from the British Storm Shadow and French Scalp cruise missiles, which changed the depth of the enemy's destruction. The MiG-29 and Su-27, according to him, received the ability to carry American high-precision JDAM-ER air bombs, and this is no longer just protection of the sky, but pinpoint strikes in the rear. Work is also continuing on the integration of anti-radar missiles, such as the AGM-88 HARM, weapons that eat away at enemy air defenses, open the sky to other means of destruction, Krapchinsky emphasized. At the same time, there are many problems along the way, the main one being resources, he said. In this case, keeping the park combat-ready becomes an art. Soviet technology is not bad. When you have a limited number of engines, spare parts, and even fewer factories capable of servicing it, keeping the fleet combat-ready becomes an art. Few people understand that sometimes one flight is half a day of work for engineers with an entire hangar of spare parts, the analyst emphasized. He stressed that using the legacy of the USSR, Ukraine is learning not to be nostalgic for it, but to integrate it into modern warfare. And this is perhaps the most difficult thing, to keep the old in order while gradually moving on to the new. He also explained how close Ukraine is to parity in the sky, emphasizing that parity is not a goal but a minimum from which an advantage begins. Parity in the sky is not just the number of fighters. It is a whole ensemble of means: aviation, air defense, electronic warfare systems, radar, and even kamikaze drones that destroy targets in the depths. Yes, getting F-16s, airborne early warning aircraft like the Saab 340 AEW and C, integrating modern aerial bombs and missiles, and all this will give us a significant boost, the expert says. But true parity, he says, comes not when you have a superplane Wunderwaffe, but when you see airspace as a system where each element covers its area of responsibility. Air defense covers the front and cities, aviation works on targets, and electronic warfare blocks the enemy. Parity is not a state. It is a process. We are not just approaching it, we are fighting for it every day in the conditions of the security that we have. Ukraine is forming a new model of war, and parity is not a goal, but a minimum from which an advantage begins, Krapchinsky emphasized.